5 minutes till we go, so nothing till then. I noticed that I can't do interpretation when I'm sharing screen, so when that comes on, I'll have to stop sharing for a brief moment to switch minds over. Just noticing that. And then, Gabriella, just wanted to make sure I'm correct on this thing around should I make you an interpreter already, or that's the process we'll wait um to start that after you make your announcement.
You can, if you mean add me as an interpreter, yes,
Yeah.
you can add me as an interpreter.
Okay.
However, don't activate it
Right.
because when
Okay.
you activate, then I will be sent to my channel.
Right. Right. Gotcha.
Mhm. Thank you.
So I'll just at least have it in there. It's going from English to Spanish. Okay. And I won't activate it yet. So got it. Okay, we'll get started. So good afternoon, everybody. See, we let folks in. We will kick off very soon. We'll wait for more folks to join, so let's give it about another 2 or 3 minutes. Get everybody on. So glad to have our folks who are right on time. We appreciate timeliness, so grateful for you all to join us.
Hola, buenas tardes a todos. Muchas gracias por estar aquí con nosotros. Vamos a dar 2 o 3 minutos antes de empezar para darle tiempo a la gente que se una a esta junta. Gracias por estar aquí a tiempo.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Welcome. As we getting folks on, maybe put in the chat, what's for lunch? Anybody, is this lunchtime for anybody? What are we eating today for lunch? I'm curious to know. This is our Lunch and Learn series, so a part of your participation is you gotta let us know what you're coming with for lunch today.
Gracias por estar aquí. Como es la hora del almuerzo, si nos pueden poner aquí en el texto lo que van a comer ahora de almuerzo en lo que estamos haciendo esta junta. Gracias.
So I guess nobody's eating lunch today. What's going on? And then also, I mean, what are we looking forward to this weekend? I need some liveliness in the chat. Let's get the chat going before we get started, folks. We love a protein box for lunch, and I'm looking forward to good weather as well. It's been real overcast lately. Welcome, welcome. All right, we'll give it just 2 more minutes, and then we'll get started. And then those who join, we'll have them join then. Welcome to our Community Voices Lunch and Learn series, breaking down the budget. Again, so excited to have folks join us. Again, we'll give it a couple more minutes. I know folks are transitioning, grabbing their lunch and all that stuff. So we'll give folks that time. See some folks are coming through on our weight room. All right. I think we will get started, and as people join, we'll just have them catch up to Party train, right? So we'll go ahead and get started. Welcome to our May Revise Breaking Down the Budget webinar here for Community Voices. Before we go any further, I do want to pass it over to Gabriella for those who may need Spanish interpretation. So I'll pass over to Gabriella to walk us through that.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to our meeting. We are offering live interpretation in Spanish during this meeting. If you wish to hear the Spanish interpretation, please click the interpretation button at the bottom right of your Zoom screen. You will see a globe icon. You're not seeing it at this moment. It needs to be activated, but once it's activated on the bottom right of your screen, you will see the globe icon. Press it, and you will be able to select either English or Spanish. And once that you select your language of your choice, make sure that you select one or the other one. Do not stay on the default off, otherwise you won't be able to hear the interpretation. Buenas tardes a todos. Estamos ofreciendo interpretación en vivo en español durante esta reunión. Si usted desea escuchar la interpretación en español, por favor vaya a la parte de abajo de su pantalla a mano derecha. Ahí va a encontrar un globo terráqueo. En este momento no lo puede ver, pero lo va a ver una vez que esté activada la interpretación. Y ahí va a escoger el idioma de su preferencia, ya sea inglés o español. Y si va a escoger español, después le pone listo. Y si desea escuchar solamente a los intérpretes y no a los oradores, asegúrese de silenciar el audio original. Todos tienen que elegir un idioma, no se quede en la posición de apagada predeterminada. Gracias. Back to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Gabriella. So I'm going to start the interpretation function for Zoom. So we will press start. Okay. All right. I think we are ready to move forward. So thank you again so much, Gabriella. We are going to move forward with talking about some housekeeping items. I'll pass it over to our Director of External Affairs, Jacqueline, to walk us through that.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. Just a quick overview of our agreement while we're together. If you have questions, please use the chat. We might take a few minutes to respond, but our team will get to you. And if Justin is moving through a piece and the question can wait till the end, we'll make note of your question, and we'll make sure that we get to your question, even if it's at the end. If you get connected, just log back in and we'll see you in a moment. We are recording this, so we will be following up with a full recording. So hopefully you can stay the whole time. If you need to jump off, and revisit this later, we'll send it out. And then we'll also encourage you to share it with your network. And then no breaks are scheduled during this hour. As Justin said, it's a lunch and learn. So just stay muted. But while you eat, drink, if you need to use the restroom, please go, do so. And we will again send out the recording afterwards. But everybody will be muted so we can hear Justin. And I say this all the time. We've been saying it probably the last year or so, but we all have opinions. And this is a neutral zone. So we're a nonprofit. We're not a lobbyist. It's neutral. We want to focus on the information at hand and future calls to action. So while I think everybody's going to be very focused and in tune on what Justin is sharing, if we do see something in the chat that is political, or just kind of divisive, we might just remove that comment just to keep it a neutral zone so everyone can stay focused on May Revise and how we move forward with it. So I think that's it. And we're so excited and happy to have you here. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jacqueline. And before we proceed, I just got word that folks aren't able to access the chat. So let me just make sure that's corrected. Boom. That's why I wasn't hearing about your great lunches and what y'all are going to do over the weekend. So the chat should be enabled now. If I could just get a thumbs up from folks who make sure y'all have access to it. And we should be good to go. Okay, perfect. All right. Got smiley faces in the chat. All right, now we're active. Okay, cool. And so as even Jacqueline uplifted a part of her comments, definitely, this is that time to ask, the questions. We will circle back to them toward the end. We will make time for that because we want to make sure we're all informed here. We're all educated and we know what's going on and what are our steps as a community here, as community voices on what we will collectively do together. So excited. I'm already seeing stuff in the chat about what we're eating for lunch and everything. So I think we're ready to get started with this lunch and learn. All right. So I'm gonna keep us going. Just to do a high level recap. We already talked about the welcome. We went over our Zoom housekeeping etiquette. As we always do with any of our webinars, anything virtual, we always make sure we add in a component of doing an overview of the Community Voices program for folks who may need a refresher or those who this may be your first time ever coming to a virtual event for Community Voices. And then, of course, we'll talk about the May revised budget. And then we'll close out. This is the time for Q&A, and then making sure you guys also, for those who may not be members or may not be sure if they're a part of the membership chain, we'll have a QR code for folks to scan just to make sure that you can participate in our membership list. So without any further ado, we'll keep on moving. So as we always again talk about, what is Community Voices? Community Voices is a Los Angeles County-wide advocacy program led by Crystal Stairs that focuses on building parent and provider leadership. And also what's also really important about this is building strong advocates to advocate on behalf of our children and our families within our community, specifically talking about early care and education. But we love that, what comes out of Community Voices in terms of you being a participant is that not only are you becoming and really honing in on your skills of being an advocate for childcare, early care, and education, that side of the work, but we really want to empower you to be advocates within your own community. We had an event recently last year where we learned about more of what the Board of Supervisors at the LA County level do. And, we really wanted to make sure we curated that space for members who participate at that event so they know how to be a better advocate for knowing what county resources they need to call about or be able to make sure that they know what's the menu of services that are there for them. And so we're really honing in on ensuring that we're building advocates for our community for anything that goes on, quite frankly, and for our children, most importantly. A lot of what we do is really centered around grassroots community organizing, but also we do civic engagement events where we're having direct contact with an elected official. The event I was mentioning just right now was a sit-down meeting with Supervisor Holly Mitchell to learn about the governance of the Board of Supervisors. We'll have plenty of advocacy trips. That's what we're pretty much known for in terms of going to Sacramento. We're planning to do something in DC, hopefully very soon. And then we do workshops, which is where that development of leadership and building those, different skills is really where that part is taking place at. Oops, went the wrong way. So a little bit about our history. Community Voices started in 2005 by actually someone I just mentioned, Supervisor Holly Mitchell, when she was actually the CEO of Crystal Stairs at the time, and our current sitting congressperson, Representative Sydney Kamlacher Dove, who was a part of the external affairs team at that time. They both launched Community Voices. If you ever hear Supervisor Mitchell talk about Community Voices, she talked about how she, on behalf of Crystal Stairs, went up to provide public comment at a committee meeting on childcare, and she saw how all these cuts were coming, and she didn't see enough parents and providers collectively coming up there to talk about how wrong this is, that the state is doing it and all that. And so she said, well, let's build a whole LA County vehicle for advocacy where we could get parents and childcare providers of the early care and education system to come together and fight against any fight that we need to that goes against cuts that come to our system, but then also ensure that we have those who are most impacted share their stories and really be there to connect and also have that opportunity to develop through leadership. I think one of the big things we always like to uplift is that although Crystal Stairs is the one who organizes, we have all our LA County partners, our resource and referral agencies, a part of the Child Care Alliance. I know we have my good friend Xenia on. It might be some others, but Xenia from Options for Learning, who I work very closely with, as she does the external affairs, government relations work for Options for Learning. And we come together for advocacy days and many other things to ensure that all of our communities are coming together on a collective voice to say, whether we're fighting against cuts or we're ensuring that we can see more budget investments come to the ECE community. So this LA County specific focus is really intentional about making sure that we have all the diverse voices of LA County at the table when we're doing legislative visits, when we're coming together to do more leadership development, right? Having that collective understanding and that collective coming together to do these things is so important for the work we do in Community Voices. Our three pillars. If you don't know anything about, what Community Voices does, just remember these three pillars: educate, empower, and advocate. It's really important that we uplift the one critical tool. Our communities, we primarily sometimes, and I hear it so much, and it's going to be keeping it real. We so sometimes are really kind of disengage with what's happening in the political process and maybe feel like our voices aren't supposed to be in these certain spaces, or we don't know what spaces we can access to elevate our voices. And so the education piece is to ensure, one, that we're creating opportunities for you to go to places where your legislators will be at, understanding the full political process of how a state budget goes from, its first, draft to what the final draft is, right? Talking about how to tell your story, right? And all these different things. And the empowerment, comes from ensuring that we all know that regardless of your, I would say, level of experience with advocacy and being a part of this type of program, that we all come together as one. One of the greatest things I love that comes out of any of our community voices, whether it's our advocacy trips or our workshops, is that you'll come back feeling as if you've found someone new that you can be able to connect with, or a group of folks. I think it's really important that, especially in these current times, that community is really important in making sure that folks who, are aligned, we all come together and make sure that we're there for each other as we're doing really critical work on behalf of children and families in LA County. And then the advocate part, which is self-explanatory, and it's what we do when we go to Sacramento, when we go to DC, when we do a lot of this, even LA County level work as well. And so it's really important to advocate. And, what's really important, and I really love how Jacqueline always ensures that we're uplifting this, is, we speak because our children can't vote. If nothing else brings us here, not only today, I see a lot of familiar faces that have been on some of our advocacy trips in the past years. If we don't come here for no other reason, we come here because we want to make sure our children are, really advocated for, make sure that they have their voices uplifted. Children don't get do-overs. And so it's our duty, it's our task, it's our charge to ensure that not only as Community Voices members, but as members of our community in general, that we make sure that we are uplifting the experiences so that our children can receive the best high quality experience when it comes to their early education experience, because it has so much it's so much importance on those first beginning years. And I know I'm preaching to the choir when I say that, but it's just really important that we uplift. This is why we're here, for our children. So now we're gonna get into the May revise. But first, before we get into it, I want to kind of give a temperature check on what's everybody's kind of understanding of the May revise. Who knows what the May revise is about? Have you heard of it? What is this whole May revise thing? If you could add it in the chat, just give us a couple comments. I want to see where we are with our understanding of it. Are you here because this is your first time hearing about it? We love to hear that. That's actually really great, because I think it's important for us as first-time learners of it to be able to receive this information and know how we can empower ourselves to talk about what we can be doing next. A lot of people don't realize that the state budget process is something that is so critical to how we realize what is going to happen to us locally. Especially in these current times, what we see what's happening at the federal government. I think it's really important for us to know what's happening at the state level, because whatever's happened federally now has a direct impact. And we'll talk about that a little bit more later. But Yes, it's about the budget. Absolutely. Great answer. Anybody else? Let me just get one more. What do we know about the May revise? Anything else? Want to see where folks in the audience are thinking about it. Yeah, there are going to be cuts to that point. I hear what you're saying, and we're going to get into that. Absolutely, absolutely. Anybody else? Anybody else has an understanding of the May revise? I need one more different person. Somebody give me something. Natasha, I think we don't have folks come up from you, so if you could put it in the chat for us. And Natasha is a very well experienced advocate, childcare provider for many years, who we definitely grateful and appreciative of. That's come on many advocacy trips with us. So I know she's got an answer for us. And yes, Ms. Wendy, thank you. Yep, changes are coming, and we got to be ready to look out for them. So I'm gonna keep on moving. Yes, it's definitely those things are on the horizon potentially, and we do need to discuss those things. So okay, great. So I appreciate everybody kind of giving me some of their weighing in on what the May revise is and what's to come in this May revise. We're gonna really get into it now. And then please, as I go through this information, drop your questions in the chat. But toward the end, before we wrap up, we're going to take some time to answer questions. So I'm going to go through this process now. So with the May revise, so just so folks understand, the May revise just doesn't drop in on us in May. This is a part of a larger state budget process that I'll explain very briefly. So January 10th is an important day because that's when Governor Newsom, but the governor in general of the state of California, has to, excuse me, by law, release his governor's budget, release their governor's budget. And so the governor is led with, having the charge of kind of creating the framework for how we will make our investments for the next fiscal year. And so January 10th of this year, Governor Newsom released his budget talking about what is the framework for investments that will be for the 25-26 fiscal year. Obviously, we're currently in the 24-25 one, so we're planning for the next year. And so after January 10th, he releases his budget. This is when, really a lot of the advocacy begins, and we've had a few different trips advocacy-wise that a few of you on this call I know participated in, but what we do is from there engage in a lot of policy and budget conversations. This is where policy and fiscal committees of the state legislature meet to discuss the budget, all those good things. And then by May, the governor releases his second version of the budget, which is called the May Revise. And this is an updated budget proposal released on or before May 14th. The governor this year released it on May 14th, required by legal statute. And incorporates the reason why there's a May revision, and these are some critical points. They have this May revision because it gives a better updated forecast and adjusts spending accordingly. And so there's a little background information for any of us really, nerdy policy wonk folks that may be in the room. Every month, the state legislatures, so our assembly members, our senators, and the governor and his administration, they receive receipts of the tax revenues coming into the state based off of what we pay in taxes, based off of based on the stock market. And we tax wealthy people a lot, and so we get revenues based on that. And so each month, the state is receiving these receipts of how much revenue is coming into the state. And between the governor and the state legislature, they use those numbers to kind of use as their kind of North Star of how they will, produce a budget proposal. And so the May revise is after so many months of tax receipts coming in, the governor is saying, okay, based off of where I see things are headed now, this is what my budget proposal is. And so he's given us our budget proposal, which has not some really great things coming about, but we're going to explain why. And then lastly, in the May revision, I just want to highlight this really important thing is that the May revision is not the final budget. I know there's some very alarming things that are going on. There's, dare I say, just to go as far as to say there's some writing on the wall we may see for certain things, but this is not the final budget. If any of us who were in this space this time last year, we saw a lot of cuts come in the May revise, but what saved it was the state legislature. So our assembly members and our senators who, as you see in this last bullet right here, they have until June 15th to pass a budget bill. And they come together, the assembly, as all the assembly members, and then the senators, they all come together and produce a one budget proposal that combines their two priorities together. And based on that, the governor either can sign or veto the budget bill, or what they call, again, this is getting into the very specifics, but you can blue line, blue pencil specific things that he doesn't want to have in there. And so essentially, I'm saying all this to say we still have time to advocate. We still have time to fight for things that we see we're divested from, or where we see continuous cuts come from the January budget proposal to the May revise. We have our state legislature to lean on to be those advocates, to propose a budget that doesn't show those cuts, or can make sure we're defending and holding the line for things that we need to keep investments in. And then we'll keep moving on. So just to kind of give you a very high level of what happened this May 14th, the governor released his budget for 25-26 fiscal year. And this budget proposal came with a $12 billion deficit. And we'll get in a little bit more about why that deficit occurred, but what the high level I will tell you now is that it is because we had some wildfires here in LA County. Because of those, we have not had everybody. You remember I talked about tax receipts. And so because we have certain parts of our county here in LA County, it's a very large county. So when you have groups of folks not, their taxes are delayed until October, that shows a shift in what they're anticipating revenues will look like. And so because of that, because of the volatility, the shifting economy, again, if you remember, I talked about how California's economy runs on those very wealthy folks. And so when the stock market is doing really bad, for example, just in the back of your mind, think about like, oh, wow, that means the state is actually losing money or doesn't have as much money as they anticipate they'll receive. And then lastly, I would say, which is the biggest thing I would say is based off of what they're already seeing being cut from the federal government to California, those things are also trickling to $12 billion deficit. But I will mention that, and I say it in this next slide, this May revise, unfortunately, doesn't encompass what the federal government is proposing for the bill that they'll pass on the federal level, meaning that the state may pass a budget by June 30th, and the governor may sign it by June 30th, but we may see a situation where the state legislature, again, the assembly members and the senators come together after the budget is passed to potentially come back and cut more things. Because one, a legislator put it to me this way. As California is the 5th or 4th largest economy in the world, which is crazy. Think about that, as we still have a budget deficit, but as we're one of the largest economies, top 5 in the world, the US, the country we live in, is still number 1. And so when things are cut at those significant rates, as those matches federally that usually come to us to support a lot of the work we do, not even just in childcare, but across the spectrum of all things that are funded by the state, we cannot backfill those things. And so the state is in this position where not only are there things going on in our own state revenues that are coming under what we anticipated, we're also seeing what's happening in DC compounding with us saying, well, we may have to come back and pull more money. And so this is the situation currently our state is facing in relation to what's happening in Washington, D.C. And so now I want to get into what are some of those cuts that are going to have a direct impact. Now, if you were on May 14th, the day the governor released his budget, if you ever watch any of the press conferences he does for the May budget proposal, you sometimes notice he doesn't really cover all of childcare. And so he didn't really cover a lot of childcare in this presentation, but this is what we took away from what was in his actual full summary of things that are going to impact the ECE system. The first thing that has a really significant impact is the reduction in funding for the Emergency Child Care Bridge Program, which is a program for children or foster children to receive emergency child care. and the reduction is going to be 42 million over 2 years, which is really, I think, nearly half of the program's funding will be gone over the next 2 years. Excuse me, next 2 years, which is a really volatile situation that will have a lot of resource parents who foster children, and there's no money within our counties to be able to give them the child care. It may put them in a really bad situation. And so that's happening. Another big thing that's going to have a real big impact on the system is the child care cost of living adjustment. There's a 61%, 61 million, excuse me, reduction in cost of living, essentially meaning they're going to suspend for next fiscal year any cost of living added to any payments that go out. So essentially, those of us who participate in CDSS or and this is California Department of Social Service contracts, those of us who are in the California State Preschool Program contracts, we unfortunately won't see a cost of living adjustment. And as we think about why this is so important, we look at the fact that the tariffs, right? This whole thing around that. We just look at beyond just talking about the tariffs, the ongoing inflation going on, not only in our state, but across the nation. Let's also highlight the fact that childcare providers are still at a base rate of 2018's regional market rate, and then with a additional cost of care plus. But again, it's not matching what it costs to pay insurance premium costs, what the costs are for products or anything to operate a business. So this is going to have some impacts on us, a significant impacts when we don't see COLA, cost of living, that's what that stands for, applied to contracts over this next fiscal year. Childcare expansion. So I've had childcare providers and even parents come to me directly about this one. I just want to uplift it, although it was not mentioned in the budget. I just want to uplift it. Childcare expansion. Some of us know it as childcare slots, childcare spaces. Essentially, as we know, there's wait lists that agencies and childcare providers may have. In order for us to be able to clear those wait lists, to be able to make sure we're admitting families into our childcare programs, we need to receive additional childcare slots from the government, again, our state, to be able to have those voucher dollars be able to be allocated. And so we've had a pause, and we haven't had any new slots added since the 22-23 fiscal year budget, meaning that, again, when we talk about wait lists, as unless we have families enrolling out, we are not able to address the waitlist situation. And again, which means that families eligible for child care subsidy are not able to access the child care that they need to, whether it's to continue to be at work, whether it's going to school, whatever it may be. And so this is a huge thing. And so I will uplift, though, that the governor's administration will resume providing those slots. Again, the child care expansion in the 26-27 year, meaning we won't see it this next fiscal year, but the following year after that. So 2 years, essentially, right? And that's a huge thing, and we're fighting against that. And the promise that we got was 200,000 slots, and this was back in 2020, during the time of the wake of the COVID-19 pandemic. Childcare expansion was promised that we would get 200,000 new spaces, new slots in expansion, and it's been severely slowed down for budgetary reasons, for allocation reasons, many other things. But again, there's such a demand for it. And then lastly, I wanted to uplift the cost of care plus monthly payments continuing, as there is going to be, and this is for those who are child care providers, ensuring that they will have cost of care plus until we reach an agreement on the bargaining side for in the child care providers union is working directly with the administration to do that. I think it was Natasha who added it into the chat earlier, but currently with negotiations, to say it very directly, things aren't going well, and she uplifted that healthcare and retirement is on the table to be cut for our child care providers. And so this is the current climate we're living in when we talk about the workforce, the lifeline of the early care and education system, you know, in their relationship to the bargaining that's happening with, you know, reaching a new agreement. And really essentially talking about this true cost of care model that needs to be implemented so childcare providers can be paid fairly to what they should be compensated for the work that they do each and every day. And so that's something that we're continuing to track. The agreement expires June 30th, but we really want to ensure that our childcare providers that support our families and all of us each and every day, that they get what they deserve in terms of receiving fair pay and the wages that they have been fighting for. So that's something to just uplift. Lastly, I will just uplift on, Jacqueline, you had something?
Yep, I want to, just because we were talking about providers, let me know if you want to hold this question. Margaret had asked, like, do we know when the regional market rate will change, if at all? And she also asked about staffing as well.
Yeah, so the regional market rate we're currently at the 2018 regional market rate. The goal and what we're trying to push for as advocates and even the child care provider union is to move from regional market rate to an alternative methodology to fund the true cost of care to pay child care providers. So the goal is not to move into a new regional market rate, but to switch it over. In terms of timeline, it's really up to the governor and the administration, CDSS, all the folks in that realm to let us know when they are. They are required to have adoption of an alternative methodology by July 1st, which is coming up very soon of this year. We hope to see that, but to answer the question, it should happen by July 1st, with implementation happening the following years. But again, as I uplifted, the way bargaining and things are going with CCPU and the governor's administration, things, you know, with healthcare and retirement being cut potentially, you know, things aren't looking good, and we just don't know what the timeline is just right now. Things may shift, and that's why we're going to continue to, you know, advocate and lift that up as an important priority. Yeah, and just to respond, Margaret, they did the survey, but they aren't going to go back to the 2022 one because they're working on this new alternative methodology. And so they're going to do the 2018 regional, they're going to continue the 2018 regional market rate with the cost of care plus increased wage. And again, the EC system is really pushing to ensure that the governor's administration adopts this alternative methodology, just for that clarification. So yeah, so thank you for pausing on that. Even while we pause here, was there any other questions since I paused that maybe I can answer before I cover this last slide?
There was nothing else in the chat so far.
Okay, great. Yeah, keep dropping. If you have any questions, please drop them in. I'll be done actually very shortly. So last thing I just want to uplift though is the reductions. A big conversation we've been talking about is what's been going on with Medi-Cal. And that's our state level Medicaid that translates down to Medi-Cal here in the state of California. We're already seeing in the governor's May revised proposal that we're going to see 5 billion cut in reductions, right? And then by 2028, 29 fiscal year, those reductions will total up to 14 billion. And I must remind us all again that these are numbers proposed without even taking into account what the federal government will officially do. And so, you know, so many folks, so many families, so many marginalized communities, those most vulnerable, will lose healthcare, children included. And so this is a really extremely, you know, point to just emphasize of where we really need to continue to advocate, because as those who are most in need of our the services that that we're looking to cut, it will have a huge impact on, you know, our children, our families, all of us in the community. I always like to tell people, who are like, oh, well, I'm not on Medi-Cal, so how does this impact me? Well, it impacts you a lot. One of those ways is one, as Medi-Cal funding or Medicaid funding from the federal government comes in to support us here in the state, those funds not only just go to those who receive the health care, but it helps support our clinics, our community health clinics. It supports our county hospitals. It supports our private hospitals as well. And also, just as important, it supports the healthcare workforce. So as Medi-Cal gets divested from and the state is left to take on the whole cost, it's going to have a huge impact on all of us. And so we all must be ensuring that we're uplifting the need to make sure Medi-Cal has the support it needs for those who are most in need. But again, this has an impact on all of us in our communities. And then lastly, I just want to uplift that the governor's administration has fully implemented, the goal is that full implementation of transitional kindergarten will happen in the 25-26 year with an increase in funding of just north of two billion that will allow for ratio reductions from 12-1 in the classroom to 10-1 ratios. And so I know this has been something we've been talking about for the past probably 5 years, 3 to 5 years, I think I would say. So I just want to uplift what's going on with transitional kindergarten as well. And then I'll just talk about next steps and call to action, but then this is also, after I say this is where I'll pause and see if there's any more questions as we kind of go to wrapping up. But what's most important, you all, because it's like, okay, what do we do next? As I know this information, what is next? Stay connected to Crystal Sayers and Community Voices. We're planning and mapping out some strategic ways that we can, one, make sure our voices are heard, but ensure that, there's a long game that we need to play with our advocacy. Not only finishing out this year, but going into next year and the subsequent years after. So we're really making sure that we are building our base of parents, childcare providers, the community at large, staff, because I know we got staff on here, to ensure that we have a huge force of folks, not only going to Sacramento, not only going to DC, not even going here locally to make sure that we're uplifting and making sure that there's education in our own communities about this. But we want to make sure that we are, unified in that. And so stay connected, because we have a lot of stuff that we're planning and we want to make sure that you're receiving that. Prepare for advocacy days. As I've mentioned, we are going to still have Sacramento trips and some DC trips coming. I think it's really important, as we knew that there was a lot of conversation around what was going to happen next with Head Start. As we've been in DC a few different times over this year, the current year, excuse me, not past, but this current year, our legislators want to hear from you all. They want to hear the stories of those impacted by what is going on, whether we're talking about our parents, whether we're talking about our childcare providers. And what's really important for us, we also want to uplift not only our small business owners of our childcare providers, but what are the business owners and corporations saying about how this is impacting them. And so we want to make sure that we're getting a full coalition of folks to really uplift the need for better investments in our childcare system. And then lastly, we're going to have this is a save the date on Saturday, June 21st. We're going to have a in-person Community Voices workshop to talk about more of how to tell your story and advocacy 101, to really get into some of the detail of what does advocacy really mean, what is the different process, what's all the things that go about it, and then uplifting how to tell your story, because that's going to be really, really critical. It's always been critical, but I really want to emphasize the need for us to really continue to uplift that our stories are most impactful, it's powerful. The testimony we provide not only sticks with the legislators, but their staff, and it allows for legislation and budget investments to move forward in a real way. So be on the lookout for that. More details to come soon. But now, before we conclude, I do want to just pause to see if there's any questions that anybody has based off of what we shared. Please drop it in the chat, and we're happy to answer those.
There is one from Jacqueline Williams, not me, the other Jacqueline Williams. Will programs be reimbursed by enrollment or attendance?
Great question. And so, yeah, unfortunately, Hold Harmless will be expiring soon. I will say that it's a part of the CCPU, Child Care Providers Union negotiations as well. So as it's set to expire in terms of current funding by this next fiscal year, if we get a win within the bargaining side of things with CCPU and the governor's administration, it could possibly continue. But as of now, we're preparing for it to expire very soon for the end of this fiscal year, unfortunately. Anything else? Please, any questions? Happy to answer them. And then as you have any questions, for those of us who wanted to make sure that you may not be on our membership list, this is our QR code. Even if you're on your phone, just even take a screenshot of it. Again, still answering any questions though, but just want to make sure any folks who may not be on our listserv for emails that you're scanning this QR code so you can sign up for it. Any other questions though? Nothing. Okay. Okay, well, I appreciate everybody coming on for our lunch and learn today about breaking down the May revised budget. We have a lot of stuff, exciting things coming very soon. As we always are familiar with, like, okay, once June and the budget, is signed, okay, we can go off to the sunset, come back in the fall. Not this year, and not probably in the next few years. Be on the lookout. We got a lot of engaging stuff happening now not only over the summer, but continuous engagement going into fall, early next year. There's a lot of work we got to do, but what's important for us here at Community Voices is that we build our base. And so we are really intentionally focused on building our base. And so if you're a current Community Voices member, come through, come join us at our in-person workshop. We'll send details out soon to you all. If you're a new person, maybe looking to join Community Voices, come by. We really want you to participate. We really love when we get new advocates in the room. That's very special. And that's very important, and you are absolutely welcome here. And so we're excited to continue to keep you all updated as we hear about what happens in the June budget, as it's finally signed. We may hold another membership meeting just to keep people updated on what's going on. But in the meantime, just continue to stay updated through our emails that we send out. And we thank you so much for your time. Have a great rest of your day. And please take care. Have a great weekend too.
Thank you.
Thank you all.